Thank you, Uncle Upendra. It was a delightful intervention. I want to open it up to questions from the floor now. If you could put your hands up or go to the microphone. Please identify yourself. Give us your name and the school that you come from. The microphone's right behind you, sir. If you could just go behind. Yeah, you're the first person to put your hand up. We'll take a few points from the floor, and then we'll give our speakers the chance to respond. Your name, please?
I have to identify myself.
Can we turn the microphone on, please, there?
Is there anything for turning?
I think it's on now. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Saeed. I am Professor and Chair of Political Science at Lakehead University, Thunder Bay. My question to both of you.
Try and speak into the microphone a little bit more, please.
My question to both of you, particularly Richard, in the light of your lecture, to the context of international law and global governance. My question to you, how do you see the future implication of Americans going to Pakistan for killing Osama bin Laden? For example, does it give any dangerous signal for future, like hard power India, to pick up the Ulfa leaders from Bangladesh or Maoist leader from Nepal? In Upendra's word, they are radical evils. And similarly, for China to go to Central Asia or Taiwan to pick up the necessary radical evils. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
My name is Laura Westra. I'm with the University of Windsor and the University of Milano Bicocca. I have a question for Professor Falk. Do you see any possibility of changing the relation between the Security Council and the UN, particularly in regard to the repeated declarations of the UN regarding the Palestinian wall and a host of other such issues?
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Hi, my name is Yashar Bukan, first year PhD student. I have...
That wasn't very clear, yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. My name is Yashar Bukan. I'm first year PhD student. And I have 3 questions for Professor Richard and 1 question for Professor Baki.
Please, I only want you to ask 1 question. Yes, sir, took my classes, and he usually has about 25 questions on any topic. But please try and distill your question into a single question. It's only fair because other people want to ask questions too.
All right, I will have 1 general question then. Now, global governance was a solution for Kantian world. It was the solution for that world. And we're still thinking that global governance is the solution for perpetual peace.
I don't think anybody's quite understanding the question because you're not speaking distinctly enough. Yes, sir. Please, could you just try and do that again for everybody's benefit?
Global governance was a solution for Immanuel Kant's perpetual peace.
Oh, it was Immanuel Kant's solution in perpetual peace was global governance.
A just rule of law and global governance. Do you think for the future, do we have any other ways to achieve a perpetual peace other than through global governance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next person, please. We'll take 2 more points from the floor. Please.
Vijaya Sripati, postdoctoral fellow, University of Toronto. My question is to both Professor Richard Falk and Upendra Bakshi. I just completed my doctoral dissertation on the evolution of the United Nations constitutional assistance from a historical and post-colonial perspective. The UN's constitutional assistance is, I would argue, a soft power neoliberal solution for global conflicts. In almost all UN-assisted constitutions, you will find market economy, privatization, liberalization, and the usual solution. In light of this, and now UN constitutional assistance has come to stay. Second point is, as we all know, the UN Charter was crafted by colonial powers. In light of these two realities, what is the future for empowering the global South? How do we ensure that constitution making is truly an act of self-determination and not a dictated mandate? Thank you.
Thank you. Last point from the floor, please.
Hi, John Gallagher, York student. My question was for Professor Falk regarding your distinction between hard power and soft power. Especially in the recent context in Libya, it seems that sometimes what the X factor in whether it's going to be a question of hard power or soft power is whether the dictator chooses to leave when his citizens tell him to. For your vision for the future of politics, could there be a situation where hard power would be ethically justifiable? Thank you.
Let's take Richard first and then Upendra. Could you give your reflections on those questions? You can either sit down there or come here, whatever you prefer.
I think I let Richard respond to most of the questions.
Actually, I think Upendra, it's not coming through the public address system, so maybe you should just come here again, please.
Thank you for your questions and comments. I think most of the questions that lie within the competence under the ICJ statute of self-determination of the court's competence in Richard Falk's province. But for me, I would only simply say two things. One, on the question about opening up UN to Global South, Richard Falk and many others have been working on the project of the cosmopolitan global governance, of course not fortunately tinged with Gaddafi funds, as has happened in some cases. And the general idea that had emerged was that there should be a significant reform of the UN Charter, and in particular by an addition of a third deliberative chamber, not comprising the Global South states, but the wretched of the Global South peoples. In other words, there would be a representation of peoples as distinct from states in the formulation of agenda and general politics. And I think that's one way to go. Kant would have been horrified at the notion, current ways in which we express and articulate the notion of global governance.
Upendra left me with most of the hard work. But let me try to, these were a very challenging group of questions covering a very wide range of concerns and issues. I share the view that the manner in which the execution of Osama bin Laden was carried out is a most unfortunate precedent. And the only way that one can rationalize it is as an extreme instance of hierarchical logic, that only the imperial actors should be allowed to do this, because obviously if it creates a precedent that others can take similar advantage of, that it's a new, if you treat it as a new element of world order, then as was pointed out, there would be no end of scenarios of execution of leaders or aspiring leaders or whoever. It touches in a way on the radical evil point that Upendra raised. Whoever is perceived as radical evil in one place, one sector of international society would then become candidate for this kind of extraterritorial intrusion on sovereignty, which is also involved. And here, I think in the Osama bin Laden case, in addition, to the extent we know the facts, the execution of an unarmed person accused of crimes against humanity, which certainly seems to be a plausible accusation, but the extrajudicial execution of such a person is itself a crime, and should certainly not be celebrated as from either a moral or legal point of view. Straightening out the how to disempower the Security Council in the context of the Israel-Palestine conflict is an interesting formulation, and I think has been given some thought of, and the only way of proceeding in the near future is by re-empowering the General Assembly and by making increased use of the International Court of Justice. Now, the International Court of Justice is a good illustration of my speculation about the legitimacy wars, because it can't enforce its judgments. It made a very clear assessment of the unlawfulness of Israel's separation wall built on Palestinian territory. Yet there was no will or capability in the international community to give effect to that authoritative judgment. But what it does do is legitimate civil society opposition and resistance. And just like the Goldstone report, it won't be implemented where it should be by the authorizing UN actor, but it plays a very important role in shaping the moral terrain on which a political struggle is waged. And if I'm correct about the ascendancy of soft power, it is one of the instruments of soft power is to gain control over the moral heights in a conflict. And so there's a tendency either to dismiss the UN because it can't implement its proper conclusions, or to exaggerate its relevance by adopting an excessively legalistic perspective. And what I'm trying to suggest is it's behaviorally impotent except where it is reinforcing geopolitical consensus. It's not impotent at all in relation to authorizing force against Libya, but it's impotent if it tries to override geopolitical priorities, as is the case with any initiative that is critical of Israel, whether it's the building of settlements or the Goldstone report or withdrawal, the end of the blockade in Gaza. Whether there are, of course, serious alternatives to Kant's perpetual peace. One of the most common of them is world government, which was something that Kant opposed. He believed that the way toward a peaceful world was through the establishment of republican forms of national governance and strengthening a tradition of comity coupled with demilitarization as the foundation of a peaceful world. A very relevant vision still, but it's certainly not the only one. There's also ideas about the regionalization of political authority that were more fashionable before the EU ran into such difficulties during this financial crisis. The very important question about how to empower the Global South within the UN constitutional framework, I think is an issue that has not a formal answer. It's really a issue of political struggle within that arena, and how to less how to reshape the formal and constitutional framework than to reshape the way in which politics is carried out within the UN, which has been dominated by Western and especially American priorities. And the final question about Libya is raised by the Libyan issue, which is whether hard power is ever justifiable. And I would say it was in the contexts where genocide or severe human rights violations are imminent, and the Security Council authorizes such action, and where the political capabilities exist to really stop the prohibited behavior. If there is no political will within the Security Council, then the issue becomes one of imminence and necessity and an appeal to global public opinion. The Kosovo case is a close case, I think, where there was reasonable grounds in view of what had happened in Bosnia, the genocidal ethnic cleansing in Bosnia, to feel that the people of Kosovo were confronted by an imminent humanitarian catastrophe, and that only a hard power intervention could prevent that result from occurring. Always in these situations, the facts are contested and ambiguous, and the burden of persuasion should be on those that advocate the use of hard power. But I think, despite all the Schmittian overtones, one needs some kind of right of exception that does recognize the complexity of political reality, and no absolute can be categorically respected under all circumstances. So I think it is an important question, and really what I was trying to express was not the total pacifism of not suggesting that what we were requiring was a total pacifism, because that would ignore this issue that Upendra raised of radical evil, but rather that what we should be approaching is the renunciation of violent geopolitics and of what the journalist Thomas Friedman called wars of choice. Those discretionary violence to support these structures of domination is unacceptable morally and politically, almost always a disaster. See, and it's not only that this kind of aggressive warfare is morally and legally unacceptable, it's also that it doesn't politically succeed. It's and that's why I use the word dysfunctional. in my view, the moral objections stand on their own. They don't depend on this consequential kind of reasoning. But the consequential reality is such that it should be reinforcing to even realists who are not in denial. But unfortunately, there are very few of them around.